This week on Indie News, a portable tabletop dolly controlled by your smartphone, plus a motorized pan head to make my camera moves fully robotic. Hey Indie Mogulers, Griffin here. Today I have two motorized smart devices that edelkrone sent me. One is this tabletop dolly called the dollyONE, and this rotating pan head called the headONE. So each of these products have a pretty small form factor, perhaps made for a shooter like me who wants to travel relatively light, but maybe I still want the ability to do some cool dolly moves like this, maybe during a time lapse. So today I want to try out three shots, three ways I might actually use products like this in the field to see if it's worth taking on my next shoot. So I'll do a documentary interview shot, a rotating stop motion shot, and a dolly move during a time lapse. So the first time I turned on the dollyONE, my son Peter was super impressed. It's a solid, heavy device, heavier than my camera. Could be heavy gears and motors, but I bet it's weighted to keep the center of gravity low when a camera is mounted high above. Both the dollyONE and headONE are so simple to turn on. There's no on-off switch, no screen, no status light. Just pop on the Canon-style LP battery, and a few seconds later, each device beeps to signal that it's ready to pair. Open the edelkrone app for iOS or Android, make sure Bluetooth is enabled, and hit Smart Pairing. The app easily finds both devices and knows to operate them together. But because there is no off switch, I usually forget to remove the batteries after I'm done. Edelkrone also sent me their FlexTilt Head 2, which is essentially a ball head but with a lower profile and up to 6 inches of extra rise. So the idea during this interview shot is, like a slider, have this camera go back and forth. And of course, we want it to pan as well to keep centered on the subject. That'll be me in this case. The cool thing though is I have the pan head, which can do that, but I don't necessarily need it because the slider itself, the dollyONE, actually has two wheels and can run one of them faster than the other and do an arc. So I wouldn't even necessarily need the second product to accomplish that. Now, the only thing I'm worried about here, there's really two things. I'm worried about the sound this could make. Could that interfere with the sound I'm getting from the subject? And two is the height of this thing. Good news is I don't hear the sound of the dolly moving in my interview audio. For my second shoot, this long meeting table is super smooth, ideal for my stop motion test. After putting the dollyONE into a curved arc path, I'm using stop motion mode, where movement is paused between each shot. Using a shutter release cable to connect my camera to the dollyONE, I can fire an exposure through the app. Then the dolly sets up my position for the next shot. One by one, I can animate my subject while the dolly captures cinematic movement. This worked perfectly, and the resulting photo animation looks good. So my time-lapse test did not go as I wanted it to. The best thing I could do for a time-lapse is, what if I go to the Flatiron building and I could send the dolly forward? Because that's something you can't do with a slider. Going forward, you'd see the end of the slider. But New York City asphalt or New York City sidewalk was just way too much terrain for this dolly to handle it. Finally, what I found was a plastic covered stone, still kind of bumpy, but it managed to be able to do a side to side dolly move on that. And that's the time lapse I ended up shooting. Again, I can't fault edelkrone for this shaky time lapse when I give it a bumpy surface. Luckily, this kind of shake is easily smoothed out with warp stabilizer in After Effects. In the end, for most of what it does, it was easier to operate than any other motorized camera device I've tried. So I think I will take it on my next shoot, just knowing that there are limitations I'll have to deal with, like setting up low shots like this, and knowing that not every piece of terrain is possible for this thing to drive over. But aside from that, there is a lot that this can do, and it seems to work pretty easily right out of the box. So let me know if there are any questions you have about this product or anything else you want me to tackle in a future episode of Indie News. And of course, thanks as always for watching, and if you like educational and entertaining filmmaking content like this, be sure to subscribe to Indie Mogul. I'll start that over. I have to wait for it to come all the way back.